Middle school teachers, what is the cringiest thing you've seen a student do? I organized an activity that was sort of like Never Have I Ever, but positive and meant to build empathy. Basically, a student would say, "You're in my boat if," and whatever they say that is the same as you have to stand up and find another chair. Great activity. One of the girls, who I found puzzling because she just did and said things that were nonsensical, started her period and got blood all over multiple chairs. Some kids start looking at the seats and have no idea what's going on. The girls in the class figure it out, but don't say anything. They just avoid said tainted chairs. The boys, however, are as dumb as a box of rocks and are touching it and sitting in the seats. I'm sitting there horrified since 1, that's disgusting, 2, I didn't initially know who was pulling a carry, and 3, how the hell do I nonchalantly stop the activity to get this biohazard cleaned up and no one really notices? After a short observation of the students, I noticed that the one girl was the unfortunate cause of all this. I told her that she was to do a favor for me, and I stepped outside. I asked her if she knew that she started her period, and she said yes. I sent her to the office and then went back in the room for damage control. I honestly don't know how I concocted a magical excuse, but I told all the kids that we were invited to go to the library for silent reading time, but had to go now because all the good squishy seats would be taken if they didn't hustle. They believed me and I sent them down there. A few girls stayed behind that figured out what happened, and I told them I knew and sent them as well. I finally get on the phone and inform the unfortunate janitor about the bloodbath in my room. Story 2. I was a volunteer lifeguard at a middle school for part of the year. This school also has a swimming month in the gym classes, where students must wear bathing suits bought and ordered via financial aid at the uniform store. There was a highly overweight girl in one of the classes, and she didn't seem to be aware of the standard issue bathing suits. The gym teacher sent home reminders the week before, but I guess she forgot. This girl was picked on a lot in general and always kept to herself. She was very shy. She never spoke. If you called on her to answer a question in front of the class, she would get teary. On the first day, the other students showed up wearing the uniform bathing suits, but she was wearing her bathing suit from home. It also wasn't a particularly pretty bathing suit, as it looked very old lady-ish and had a bright orange Hawaiian shirt type of pattern. She stuck out, which you could see in her body language really bothered her. The gym teacher ended up calling her out in front of the whole class, giving her a lecture and giving her a detention for not wearing her uniform because that was the rule. Her face turned bright red and she just stood there silently while other kids stared at her and giggled. You could tell that she wanted to cry and that her soul had just crumbled. The lecture went on for a very long time. This was a gym teacher who didn't like it when students disobeyed the rules. I was sitting off to the side, wringing my hands and bouncing my knee in secondhand embarrassment. I wish he had just read the reminder. Poor sweet child. Always read the reminders. Story 3. Not a teacher, but when I was in grade 9, my grades weren't the best. On the day of the big graduation ceremony, they came and told me I didn't have enough credits to graduate, but they're passing me anyway because I just barely squeaked by. I thought, great, I made it. So I went along with my classmates to the ceremony. So there we were, a group of about 300 kids in rows and rows of chairs on one side of the gym, and all the parents and families of the kids on the other side. They started calling up the kids one by one to receive their certificates. And once they were called up, they all stood on these bleachers at the back of the stage for a big photo at the end of the ceremony. So the rows and rows of chairs we were in slowly emptied out as the names were called, one by one. Then when they got to my row, my name wasn't called. The guys on each side of me got called, but not me. Finally, the very last kid was called up, and there I was, still sitting there, all alone in the middle of this vast layout of empty chairs in the gym. People were staring, whispering, pointing. Guess that kid didn't graduate. Must be a real dummy. I never felt lower in all my life. I wanted to run out of there, but I was too scared to draw even more attention to myself. So I just sat there. I still cringe to this day when I think about it. On the bright side, I was able to walk out of that hellacious school with its abusive teachers and bullying students for the very last time. Story 4. My husband teaches English at a middle school. He brought some creative writing assignments home to grade, and since I'm an assistant teacher for much younger humans, kindergarten, he drafted me into helping him sort through the mess and grade them. We've made good progress through the stack when I pick up a paper that has a kiss mark near the name in lipstick. Okay, that's odd, but I'm used to working with kids who are only just figuring out bathroom habits. A little lipstick on a report is hardly weird in my book. Plus, middle school. Then, I see the name. Hun? Who is R? Husband, without missing a beat. R is this goth kid who looks like a rainbow threw up on him after having marathon sex with a unicorn. I look back at the kiss mark. Glitter lipstick. Nice shade choice if the kid is going for goth pale. I read his creative writing assignment. I get up halfway through to go pour myself more wine. It's extremely well-written gay erotic literature featuring my husband and another teacher at the school. The kid is going places. I don't know what those places are, but he's going places. Story 5. Summer camp counselor here. Names have been changed to protect the innocent. Samantha found it hilarious to scream "roasted" at inopportune times, such as upon learning someone's pet bunny died, or when a kindergartner fell on her face and knocked a tooth out. Taylor wrote fanfiction. Weird fanfiction. In one of them, Guy Montag from Fahrenheit 451 was having relations with Elizabeth from BioShock. A big daddy was involved. She would read these loudly and publicly. Samuel enjoyed telling people how much he balls and sexes. According to him, he has sexed with 200 girls, and all of them have humongous knockers. He claims he has sexed Keira Knightley, Taylor Swift, and Emma Watson. This list grows longer daily. Lily says "that face though" a lot and at completely random moments. It's unclear whether this is intended as a compliment or an insult. She also really likes Beyonce to the point of obsession. Tim has a fidget spinner collection. He doesn't ever actually use them, just proudly shows them off. He claims one of them costs $22.50. This is treated like it is $1,000. Amanda likes to attempt to twerk. She also tells everyone about how she wishes she could get pregnant because she's ready to be a mom. Amanda is 13. She also has no idea how that would work, seeing as she seems to think pregnancy spontaneously happens when a woman is ready. Kyle insists he's part pony and will neigh loudly. He's a major brony and refers to the kindergarten girls who enjoy the show as his Pegasisters. He likes to discuss the show with these 4-year-olds and gets mad when they don't know it like the back of their hand. It's a weird age. Story 6. I teach 8th grade. This student had talked to me previously in private about how the girl he liked was in my class the same period he was. He said that they had almost dated when they were both at their previous school before transferring to the one where I teach. On top of that, all the other students were aware that he had a major crush on this girl. So one day, he finished his classwork early, and apparently, he just couldn't take the hormones raging inside of him anymore. He blurts out, loud enough for everyone in class to hear, "Look, girl's name, are you gonna date me or what?" I pretend to work through this while cringing so hard on the inside. I see every other student in the room work through this, from shock to laughter to pure amazement and curiosity as to both why he would choose this moment and what on earth her response would be. The girl very politely said, "I'm just not looking for a relationship right now. Thanks for asking though." Story 7. Had an 8th grade girl pretend to pass out because she was upset. She got written up for screaming that another girl was a effing B word in the middle of her science class, then got upset when that other girl didn't also get in trouble for looking at her wrong. In the dean's office, she was so upset that she pretended to faint, complete with back of the palm to the forehead and dramatic exhale, and then laid on the floor until we were forced to call an ambulance. Before the ambulance comes, Mom walked in, she worked right across the street, and said, "Darn it, Jennifer, we're not doing this again." So evidently this was a regular occurrence around their house. At this point, the girl squinted her eyes open but refused to actually get up. When the squad got there, they checked her vitals and basically knew she was fine. They had to take her because we can't take chances with this stuff in schools. We all just kinda looked at each other and shrugged. So yeah, that was cringy. Story 8. I teach middle school math. The dabbing after answering a question correctly on the board got old really fast. Of course, one kid insisted that it was funny every single time, and it was so hard to watch, but I had to let him keep doing it until the other kids put him in check and he realized he looked like an idiot. Also, I had a 6th grader who had an extreme crush on an 8th grader. At the end of the year, he gifted her massage oils with a creepy note, and she reported it to the administration. Then, on the last day of school, he tried to steal the class picture I had with her in it, and a student caught him. I tried to defuse the situation, but the kids figured it out. He didn't hide his obsession very well. He was in my homeroom this past year, and I always made sure my picture was there before I left for the day. He also asked me if I could have an assignment of hers I kept as an example for a project. One day he asked me how much a plane ticket cost to China. She was an international student and went back there for high school. And I told him it would be a little strange to visit someone halfway around the world who did not feel the same way and wasn't expecting him. He told me I was being disrespectful. Story 9. Just finished my first year of teaching middle school. I had one particular student who did not view me as an authority and refused to work in my class. This was especially concerning because this student was placed in an advanced class and chose to not learn purely because of who the teacher was. This also meant that the student's classmates were well-behaved, gifted students. One day, while the whole class was completing an assignment, this student was not working. When I addressed the issue, the student threw a fit and started crawling around on the floor underneath the other students' desks. Now, I don't know when you've last been in a middle school classroom, but the floor is absolutely filthy. This student thoroughly embarrassed themselves, as was evident by the looks received from the other students. The whole situation was extremely awkward for everyone, especially when the student realized they would get no support from the other students. Story 10. We had this one kid in our 8th grade class stick his entire hand in a cake that was being passed around for a party, grab a chunk, and started eating it like a Neanderthal. It was chocolate and his face was covered. When he finished his chunk of cake with everyone looking in disgust, he then proceeded to lick every finger. It was torture watching. He also ended up being the kid that threatened to blow up the school at the end of the year. Story 11. We were doing a project involving postcards and the Silk Road, which I was hanging in the hallway. Some kid wrote the postcard out and used it as an opportunity to include a part in the letter asking a girl classmate to the upcoming dance. He came to me and asked if I could make sure his letter was at eye level on the bulletin board outside my classroom for her to see. At that moment, every dumb thing I have ever done to impress a girl had flashed before my eyes. I could only imagine the congregation of his classmates outside my class reading this note and never letting him live it down. I wanted to spare him, but I figured my job was to educate, not shield him from how cruel the world can be for passionate people like ourselves. I ended up obliging. I managed to catch her reaction by chance while I was still putting up the bulletin board display. The look on her face when she read it was awfully WTF, and she did show a friend, but everything went better than expected for the kid. She agreed to go to the dance with him, and that was the end of that. I'm sorry I don't have a better ending. Story 12. I taught 5th grade recorder class as part of general music, so every kid had to play them for a quarter. It was freaking awful. 15 to 20 kids, half of whom were budding criminals, playing out of tune on plastic recorders. I was in the middle of yelling them out again when I heard what sounded like a sneeze combined with a squeak. I look over and the dumpiest, runkiest boy in the class, the gross kid if you will, had sneezed with his recorder in his mouth and proceeded to blow clear snot through it and onto his fingers. He sat there for like 15 seconds dumbfounded with that orange clear plastic recorder hanging out of his mouth. Finally, I told him to just put it on the table. A few minutes later, I accidentally knocked it on the floor and it broke, justifying my throwing it away after class. I bought a new one at the 99-cent store because I was not giving that thing to anyone else. Story 13. My sister-in-law is a middle school English teacher, and she's told me several times about a student she had a number of years ago named Brendan. Brendan had an unrequited and very obvious crush on a classmate named Melinda. During their poetry unit, each student had the opportunity to recite a favorite poem in front of the class. The first hand up was Brendan's, which was unusual to my sister-in-law since she described Brendan as a greasy neckbeard type. Brendan stood up in front of the class and began reading the lyrics to Scar Tissue by the Red Hot Chili Peppers while locking eyes with Melinda. Only as the song went on, he began to harmonize more and more until he was doing a full-on Anthony Kiedis impression. With birds I'll share this lonely view, that kind of thing. My sister-in-law looked over at Melinda, who was candy apple red, looking down at her desk and shaking her head either in disbelief or despair. When Brendan got to the guitar solo part of the song, he started to scat the music. Do, 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 bop, bop, wop, wop, like that. He started stuttering as he got towards the end of the song, and he had neither won over his crush nor brought the class to their feet with his impressive performance. He bailed during the last chorus and ran to the bathroom, and my sister-in-law got a male colleague to follow him. The other teacher reported back that when he entered the bathroom, he just heard low, mournful sobbing and splattering waste sounds coming from one of the stalls. He turned around and left without saying a word, and wished my sister-in-law luck. Story 14. Oh God, so many of these at a cluster F of a Catholic school, 7th grade. Sweetest, most innocent girl asked me what a G-spot is. I'm a guy. I said I didn't know. That's partially true. Walked in on a bunch of kids vaping in the bathroom while talking about how bad of a teacher their English teacher was. I had fun with that one. One of the students had to give a presentation on an interest of theirs, part of an essay, and she went on a long tangent about fencing, and all the, I think, more well-liked children laughed at her. She left the room in tears, and I felt so bad. I just wanted to get those kids. Little Korean kid stole vodka from his parents to seem cool and brought it into school in a water bottle. The kids drank it and ratted on him immediately. Sorry, Kenny. And perhaps the best was when this emotionally disturbed kid, this was actually when I taught 5th, got mad about something quite trivial and threw his desk in a show of strength, then ran out of the school and was asked to leave the following day. Story 15. Substitute teacher here. Saw a kid bang her head against the wall to attract attention when I couldn't help her at once. Did it repeatedly and harder until I helped her out. Also, a teacher low-key flirted with a 9-year-old. Let's call the girl Sarah. The teacher asked her stuff like if she had put on makeup only for him. She had dry lips and only had lip balm or whatever it's called, and had his hand on her shoulders when standing behind her and talked to her. When Sarah asked for his help, he whispered some stuff in her ear. I'm guessing advice because he never told her some helpful stuff like he did to the rest. She didn't seem bothered, but I was. I guess Sarah could be a relative, but I never asked. I was a bit creeped out. I have no evidence, so I can't really call the cops, but I hinted it to another teacher. Story 16. Had a kid who legitimately believed he was a Sith, like from Star Wars. His helicopter mom would come flying down to the school crying religious discrimination if you told him otherwise. He would relax his throat and talk in a deep voice and say it was his real voice, but he disguised his voice not to scare his human brethren. On free dress days, he'd wear an all-denim outfit with high waters and denim vest over a denim shirt. I had him for science, so he'd blurt out things about alchemy from an anime he was into whenever we were working with the periodic table. He also had a girlfriend who lived in Mexico, who was also his cousin. Story 17. Not me, but a teacher of mine. Also not middle school, but high school. This teacher had been teaching for 30 plus years. She was telling us that if we were ever bored, we should read through the school's rule book, because there were some wild rules listed that had to be written because kids do some wildly moronic things. She then proceeded to tell us about the one she had a hand in making. She left her classroom and came back to a kid taking a huge dump on his desk because he got upset. Apparently, back then, they couldn't do anything but detention because it wasn't written down as a school rule, and the kid's parents fought to keep the kid in because it was a pretty good school. The rule that resulted from this ordeal, as I remember it, read, students are not allowed to urinate or defecate on any property of the school. This includes, but is not limited to, desks. Just desks was listed.